Rain pelted my face as I stood on the porch of my own home, my suitcase sagging at my feet, the lock clicking shut behind me. At 68, I never thought my son, David, would throw me out like yesterday's news. "You can't stay, Mom," he'd said, his voice sharp as the February chill. "We need the space. My home, my memories, my sacrifice, stolen by the boy I'd raised. Would I let him win, or would I find a way to take back what was mine?" Subscribe now and drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been betrayed by family? Let's find out how this unfolds together. I was 68 when my world crumbled. For 30 years I'd poured my heart into our split-level house in Willow Creek, Ohio. Every mortgage payment, every late-night repair, every daisy I planted in the garden was for David, my only child. After my husband Tom died in '92, I raised David alone, working double shifts at the Willow Creek Library, clipping coupons and stitching his Superman cape for Halloween. The house was more than walls, it was our story. The kitchen where we danced to Fleetwood Mac's Rumors on vinyl, him giggling as I spun him. The backyard where he built a treehouse with Tom's rusty tools. I thought it was ours forever, but last year the library cut my hours. At 67, they called me overqualified for the part-time roles they gave to younger staff. My pension barely covered the electric bill, and Social Security didn't stretch to property taxes. David, now 42, with a wife Sarah and 2 kids, had moved back in 3 years ago, promising to help. "We're family, Mom," he'd said, his arm around me. I trusted him. I signed the house over to him, keeping my name on the deed for safety. Thinking we were partners, I cooked pot roasts, babysat his kids, and paid half the bills from my savings, $12,000 I'd scraped together over decades. Then one Tuesday, he sat me down at the dining table, the same one where we'd carved pumpkins in '85. "We're selling the house," he said, eyes on his coffee mug. Sarah nodded, her arms crossed, lips tight. "We need a bigger place for the kids, a fresh start." I stared, my heart pounding. "This is my home, David. Where am I supposed to go?" His jaw clenched. "You'll figure it out, you always do." They'd already listed it, without a word to me. My home, my history, priced at $420,000, like a used car. When I pushed back, he snapped, "You're a burden, Mom. We can't keep carrying you." Sarah chimed in, "You should have saved more. It's not our fault you're broke." The words hit like a slap. I'd sacrificed everything, nights studying for my library degree, weekends skipping vacations to save for his college. Now, I was a burden. I stood in the rain, my arthritis flaring, as the door locked behind me. The injustice burned deeper than the cold. Society didn't care either. At the senior center, they shrugged, kids these days, as if my pain was just aging's toll. But something sparked inside me, a defiance I hadn't felt since the '70s, when I'd watched MASH reruns, cheering Hawkeye's clever comebacks. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't done. I dragged my suitcase to the bus stop, rain soaking my coat, and called my friend Patty, a retired paralegal, who'd marched with me for women's rights in '78. Our bell-bottoms swaying as we chanted for equal pay. "Come to my place," she said, her voice warm. "We'll fix this." That night, I checked into a motel off Route 40, the neon sign buzzing, the bed lumpy. My $12,000 wouldn't last long, but I clung to Tom's words from years ago. "Helen, you're tougher than you know." I wasn't sure I believed him, but I had to try. At Patty's apartment, over Folgers and her famous blueberry muffins, we planned. She pulled up the real estate listing, my living room, my curtains, my life for sale. "We're not letting him get away with this," she said, her eyes glinting, like they did when we'd sneak into feminist book clubs in the '80s. I nodded, the spark growing. David thought he'd erased me, but I was still here, still fighting. The rain might have soaked me, but it hadn't drowned my resolve. I'd find a way to make him face what he'd done, and I'd do it my way, clever, not cruel. Patty's kitchen smelled of lavender and old books, a balm against the sting of betrayal. I sat at her table, staring at David's real estate listing, family home, move-in ready, with photos of my daisy yellow kitchen. My son was selling my heart for $420,000, and I'd been too trusting to see it coming. Would I let him profit from my pain, or could I uncover his secrets and fight back? Hit that subscribe button and share in the comments. What would you do if your child stole from you? Let's keep going. Patty at 70 was a force, gray curls, sharp eyes, and a laptop she wielded like a weapon. David's not just selling, she said, clicking through county records. He's lying. She found the deed transfer from 3 years ago, my name's still on it, but there was more, a $50,000 home equity loan in my name, with a signature I'd never written. My stomach churned. David hadn't just evicted me, he'd forged my name, stealing my security to fund his life. The betrayal cut deeper than the rain-soaked night he'd locked me out. I'd given him everything, my home, my trust, my love, and he'd turned it into cash. I remembered summer 78, David at 6, his small hand in mine during a thunderstorm. I'll always take care of you, Mommy, he'd promised. Now he'd used my love to bankroll his dreams. Patty called her nephew Mike, a real estate lawyer, who helped seniors pro bono. Over speakerphone, his voice was steady. This is fraud, Helen. We can challenge the loan and the sale, but it'll take time. Any assets David doesn't know about. I shook my head. My $12,000 savings was all I had, or so I thought. Rummaging through Patty's storage closet, I found a box labeled Tom's Papers. Inside was a savings bond from 1985, bought when Tom worked overtime at the steel mill, dreaming of a fishing cabin we never got. It was $5,000 then, now worth $18,000. My pulse quickened. This was something David couldn't touch, a lifeline. But $18,000 wouldn't buy a house or erase the loan. I needed a plan, something sharp like the women in Charlie's Angels we'd admired in the 70s, outsmarting villains with brains, not brawn. Mike filed a lien on the house, citing the fraudulent loan. It wouldn't stop the sale outright, but it clouded the title, scaring buyers. David called that night, his voice tight. "What are you doing, Mom? You're ruining our lives." I gripped the phone, my arthritis flaring. "You took a loan in my name, David. Did you think I'd let that slide?" he stammered. "It was for the kids' future," then hung up. His anger hurt, but it also woke me. For years I'd been the quiet mother, the invisible widow, smoothing over his mistakes. Now I was pushing back, and it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Patty poured us wine, her ABBA records spinning Dancing Queen. "He's rattled," she said. Time to dig deeper. She searched X, finding posts from Willow Creek locals about David's family man persona, boasting about his new start. One post mentioned Sarah's new SUV, bought last month when they'd claimed they couldn't afford my property taxes. The lies piled up, each one a brick in the wall between us. I thought of Tom, how he'd taught David to fish, hoping he'd grow into a man of integrity. What had happened to that boy? I spent the next day at the library, my old workplace, combing through financial records with a volunteer, Ellen, who'd known me since my first day in '83. She found another loan, a $10,000 credit line, also in my name, tied to the house. "This is elder abuse," she whispered. The term hit hard. I wasn't just a betrayed mother, I was a statistic, one of thousands of older women fleeced by family, but I wasn't helpless. I remembered the 70s, chanting for women's rights, believing we could change the world. That fire hadn't died. I called Mike, adding the credit line to our case. "This strengthens your claim," he said, "but David's not broke, he's got assets." Assets. David always pleaded poverty. Mike promised to investigate. As I left the library, I passed the senior center, where women my age played bingo, their eyes tired. I'd been one of them, accepting dismissal as my due, no more. The $18,000 was my seed, and I'd plant it wisely, not for revenge, but for justice. David thought he'd won, but I was just getting started. David's texts flooded my phone. "You're selfish, Mom. Think of the kids." Selfish, after I'd given him my home, my savings, my trust. At 68, I was done being silenced. The lien had stalled his sale, but he was fighting back, spreading lies about my instability. Could I turn my $18,000 into real power, or would he outmaneuver me? Subscribe and share your story in the comments. Have you ever had to outsmart a betrayer? Let's see how this plays out. Patty's apartment was my war room, her coffee table littered with legal papers and takeout containers. The lien had spooked David's buyers, but his realtor was still pushing the sale, claiming title issues would resolve. Mike warned me, David's lawyer says you gifted him the house. They'll fight dirty. I nodded, my resolve hardening. I'd spent decades keeping peace, when Tom drank too much in the 80s, when David skipped college for music dreams. No more. I needed leverage, something to make David rethink his choices. Patty had an idea. You're not alone, she said, her eyes bright. Seniors here are losing homes to greedy kids or landlords. Tell your story publicly. I hesitated. I'd always kept family private, like when David's school called about his truancy, and I'd smiled through parent-teacher nights, but silence had enabled David's fraud. Patty connected me with Emma, a 30-something journalist at the Willow Creek Gazette, who covered elder rights. Over tea at Patty's, Emma listened, her recorder catching every detail, the eviction, the forged loans, the betrayal. This'll hit hard, she said. People need to hear it. I cashed the savings bond, using $3,000 to hire Emma for a feature. The article ran a week later. Widow, 68, betrayed by son's greed. It detailed the $50,000 loan, the $10,000 credit line, and my rainy eviction. X lit up, locals sharing it with hashtags like Save Helen. Strangers commented, my mom went through this, shame on him. David's realtor called Mike, frantic, buyers were bailing, spooked by the publicity. Sarah texted, you're humiliating us, Mom. Stop. I didn't reply. Her words, you're a burden, still stung, but I was done apologizing for existing. With the remaining $15,000, I rented a one-bedroom apartment, its walls bare but mine. I joined a senior advocacy group. Patty recommended, meeting women like Rita, 72, whose daughter drained her savings, and Linda, 65, evicted by her nephew. We met at the community center, its walls plastered with old Ms. magazine covers. Sharing our stories, anger, loss, hope, felt like shedding a heavy coat. They nicknamed me, the fighter, and I stood taller, but David wasn't backing down. Emma tipped me off. He'd hired a lawyer, claiming I was mentally unfit to challenge him. The accusation cut deep, painting me as a senile old woman to protect his lies. I fought back with facts. Mike subpoenaed David's bank records, revealing he'd funneled the $50,000 into a brokerage account, betting on stocks. The $10,000 credit line spent on Sarah's SUV and a Disney cruise they'd posted on X, while telling me they couldn't afford my taxes. The audacity shocked me. I remembered David at 16, sneaking my car keys to impress a girl, promising he'd make it up. He never did. Now he was gambling my future, assuming I'd stay quiet. Emma suggested a bolder move, a radio interview on WCRK, the station I'd listened to in the 80s, humming to Hall & Oates. I agreed, nervous but determined. The host, a kind woman named Clara, asked, how does it feel, Helen, to be betrayed by your son? I took a breath. It's like losing him twice, once to his choices, once to his lies. But I'm not giving up. Older women aren't disposable. Calls flooded in, listeners sharing their story. One woman, 75, said, you're my hero, Helen. I wasn't a hero, just a woman who'd had enough. The interview rattled David. His lawyer offered a meeting, hinting at a settlement. They're nervous, Mike said. Your story's too big. I felt the tide turning, but I wasn't naive. David had resources. Sarah's parents, his charm. I needed to stay sharp, like the women in the Golden Girls we'd watched in the 90s, outwitting naysayers with wit. My $15,000 apartment, my advocacy group, my voice, they were my weapon. David thought he'd erased me, but I was rewriting the story, one truth at a time. David's lawyer sent a letter, accusing me of emotional manipulation, and demanding I drop the lien. At 68, I was being smeared as a senile old woman to shield my son's fraud. His lies spread on X, claiming I'd abandoned him as a child. Could I expose him for good, or would his smears undo me? Hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, Have you ever been underestimated because of your age? Let's find out what happens next. The advocacy group was my anchor, meeting weekly at the community center, its air thick with coffee and courage. Rita suggested a public event, a rally for elder housing rights, with my story at its heart. Make it loud, she said, her eyes fierce. Emma connected us with WCRK and a local TV station, WKYC. Suddenly, I was preparing to speak on camera, my stomach knotting. I practiced in my apartment, my voice wobbling. I thought of the 70s, watching women on TV demand equal pay, their boldness electric. If they could, so could I. The rally drew 200 people, seniors, activists, even a councilwoman. I stood at the podium, my hands shaking, and spoke. My son took my home, forged my name, and called me a burden. I'm 68, not invisible. We deserve respect, not betrayal. The crowd roared, signs reading "Justice for Helen," waving. WKYC aired it that night, and X exploded with elder rights. Strangers messaged, "You're inspiring my mom." David's lawyer called Mike, offering to negotiate. "They're scared," Mike said. "You're untouchable now." I used $5,000 from my savings to fund a counterclaim, demanding David repay the $50,000 loan and $10,000 credit line, plus remove my name from all debts. Mike's subpoenas forced David's bank to freeze the loan, citing fraud. The house sale collapsed when buyers walked away, spooked by the tainted title. Sarah called, sobbing, "We're losing everything, Mom. Please stop." I felt a pang. She was my grandkid's mother, but her words echoed, "You should have saved more." "This is accountability, Sarah," I said. "You chose this." Patty and I celebrated with wine and the Eagles Hotel California on her turntable. But David fought dirty. Emma found his ex-posts, claiming I'd neglected him, leaving him latchkey while I chased my career. Lies. I'd worked nights to be home for him, packing his lunches with smiley face notes. The smears hurt, but they clarified my mission. I wasn't just fighting for me, for Rita, whose daughter stole her savings, for Linda, homeless after her nephew's betrayal, for every woman told she's too old to matter. Emma arranged a follow-up article, interviewing Rita and Linda alongside me. "Seniors are preyed on," I said, "by family, by systems that dismiss us. We're fighting back." The Gazette ran it front page, and ARP shared it online. Donations poured into our advocacy group, funding legal aid for others. I spoke at a senior center, women my age nodding, some crying. 180 hugged me. "I wish I'd fought like you." I hugged back, my throat tight. This was bigger than David now. Mike uncovered more. David had a second property, a rental he'd bought with the $50,000, hiding it from me. "He's leveraged to the hilt," Mike said. One push and his finances collapse. I didn't want him ruined, just accountable. I remembered David at 10, giving me a macaroni necklace for Mother's Day, promising to buy me a mansion. Where was that boy? I pushed the thought aside. Nostalgia wouldn't save me. Strategy would. The councilwoman from the rally invited me to a city meeting, proposing elder housing protections. I testified, my voice steady. "Our homes are our legacies. Don't let our children steal them." Applause echoed, and I felt Tom's pride, like he was watching. David's lawyer called again, desperate. "They'll settle," Mike said. "You've got them." I wasn't gloating, but I wasn't backing down. The spark of defiance had become a fire, fueled by every woman who'd been silenced. David thought he'd buried me, but I was rising, and I wasn't alone. David's lies crumbled under the weight of truth, but he hadn't surrendered. His lawyer offered a settlement, but ex-post still painted me as a neglectful mother. At 68, I'd turned betrayal into a movement. Could I secure my future and inspire others, or would David's final gambit undo me? Subscribe and share in the comments. What's the most empowering choice you've made? Let's finish this story together. The settlement came swiftly. David's lawyer, cornered by the bank's fraud investigation and public pressure, offered repay the $50,000 loan and $10,000 credit line, remove my name from all debts, and surrender his claim to the house. Mike negotiated fiercely, ensuring the title returned solely to me. I signed the papers in Mike's office, then drove to my house. Standing in the living room, where David had taken his first steps, I cried, not from pain, but from triumph. I'd won back my home, my dignity, my life. With the remaining $10,000, I started Silver Strength, a fund at our advocacy group, to fight elder housing fraud. Rita and Linda joined me, speaking at libraries and churches. The Gazette ran a follow-up. Helen Carver, 68, turns betrayal into triumph. On X, women shared their stories, calling me an inspiration. I wasn't a saint, just a woman who'd refused to vanish. David and Sarah moved to a rental, their bigger house dreams on hold. He called, voice low, "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't realize." I listened, but didn't absolve him. "Respect starts now, David," I said. "Earn it." He hasn't called since, but I left the door ajar for my grandkids, not him. Sarah sent a Christmas card, a small olive branch. I replied politely, keeping boundaries firm. "Healing, if it comes, will be slow." I redecorated the house, painting the walls sky blue, like my '79 rally sweater. I planted tulips, a promise to keep growing. The advocacy group threw my 69th birthday party, with cake and dildo. Girls reruns. Patty toasted, to Helen, who proved age is just a number. I smiled, the weight of betrayal lifting. The injustice had broken me, but the revenge, public, clever, empowering, had rebuilt me. I joined the library board, reclaiming my passion. I took watercolor classes, painting tulips with bold strokes. At the women's shelter, I volunteered, helping women like Rita rebuild. 150 said, "You get it, love can hurt." I nodded, thinking of David. My story wasn't just mine, it was for every woman told she's done. This morning, I walked through my home, tracing the walls I'd fought for. Outside, tulips bloomed, defiant against frost. At 69, I'd learned betrayal doesn't define you, it's what you do next. We're not done, we're just beginning.